Keep your hands up high. Don't reach for it. Back up. Pull it out. Just walk out. Keep your hands up. Don't reach for nothing. Keep walking. Don't you reach for nothing. Go down to your knees, sir. Go down to your knees, sir.
Gotcha. Well, you're under arrest right now. That's what's going on.
Just so you know, before anybody talks to you, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do cannot be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed for you. You have the right to stop questioning at any time. Do you understand your right?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay.
Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike and in this video we're looking into the Pike County murders. It's about as pleasant as it sounds. The Pike County murders occurred on the night of April 21st, 2016 in, where else, Pike County, Ohio. The following morning the bodies of 8 victims were found, executed. The murders went unsolved for quite a time, but not forever. This is the story of the Pike County shootings. On the morning of April 22nd, 2016, Bobby Jo Manley, sister of one of the victims, arrived at the Rhoden family property, which is roughly an hour south of Columbus, to feed the pets. When she arrived, she saw 2 pit bulls outside. The dogs were normally kept indoors, and investigating, she came across a horrific scene.
911. Yes, I need up at the 40. Let's go. Hold on. I need you to tell me the address. What's the address? Just a second. We walk to the mailbox. I think my brother-in-law's dead. Okay, what's the address? Give me just a second. 4077 Union Hill Road. 4077. 4077. Okay, 4077 Union Hill, correct? Yes, 4077 Union Hill Road. Ma'am, you gotta tell me what's going on. There's blood all over the house. Okay. My brother-in-law's in the bedroom. It looks like someone has beat the hell out of him. Okay. There's blood all over the front room. Ma'am, can you tell me what county that's in? Is it Pike County? It's Pike County? Yes, and they drug him in the bedroom. Okay. I need you to get out of the house. Did you drive over there? Yes, I did. What's your brother-in-law's name? Huh? What's your brother-in-law's name? Ma'am? Yeah. What's his name? Chris Rhoden and Gary Rhoden. Chris and Gary Rhoden? Both of them that looks like they're dead. You think they're both dead? I think they're both dead. Looks like someone has beat the fuck out of them. Okay. Is there anybody else in the house? Not that I know of. Okay. The door was locked when we got here, but I know where the key was at. And I went in, and they're laying on the floor. I'm done out. Okay. I'm standing outside right now. Okay. Just stay out of the house. Don't let anybody go in there, okay? Yeah. All right. We got deputies on the way, okay? All right. Thank you. You're welcome.
Christopher Rhoden Sr., Dana Manley Rhoden, Bobby Jo Manley's sister, and their 3 children, Clarence Frankie Rhoden, Frankie Rhoden's fiancée Hannah Gilly, Hannah Rhoden, and Chris Rhoden Jr., as well as Christopher Sr.'s older brother Kenneth Rhoden and cousin Gary Rhoden, were found brutally executed. I did tell you there were 8 of them. The bodies were found inside mobile homes on the property, except for 3 children. A 3-year-old, 6-month-old, and 4-day-old were found alive at the property. The victims had been killed by gunshots to the head, mostly, executed sometime during the previous night. The family had been shot to death while most of them were asleep. The patriarch of the Rhoden family, 40-year-old Christopher Rhoden Sr., was shot 9 times and was awake at the time of the killing. Some of the victims had been beaten before being killed, all shot multiple times, except for Kenneth Rhoden, brother of Christopher Sr., who was shot with a single bullet to the head. So, as you can imagine, what the hell? Who was responsible for this massacre? What was this about? One of the sisters of the victims arrives at the family property and finds nearly an entire family massacred. Police arrived at the scene right away, but from the beginning, they were stumped. The Rhoden family had a bit of a reputation in town for causing trouble, but never dragged their name too much through the mud. Probably people you're better off just not getting involved with. At some of the scenes where the Rhoden family were killed, investigators did find marijuana being grown. And not like, a bit for a Saturday night. They had a lot of weed. They were growing and selling. An estimated total of 200 cannabis plants were recovered from the crime scene.
There's plenty of places for people to grow marijuana. We're also a very, very poor county, one of the poorest counties in the state of Ohio, and people grow marijuana as a cash crop.
So early on in the investigation, police looked into possible motives, including a drug turf war or Mexican drug cartel connection. They also found evidence that roosters on the property were possibly being bred for the illegal sport. However, a motive dealing with a cockfighting ring never really took off, and has not been confirmed as being related to the murders. The killings were obviously incredibly horrific and tragic, but the police had a hard time finding a motive. Who would do this? Kill 8 people? They left 3 kids alive at the scene of the crime, but 8 people were still brutally executed. The theory that it could have been a murder-suicide came and went. Police believed that more than one shooter was responsible for the killings. One victim was found in his trailer 8 miles away. The police suspected the killings were planned, premeditated, and a sophisticated operation. The shooter or shooters covered up their tracks and removed any incriminating evidence. As all the victims were of one family, police advised surviving relatives to be careful, and residents of the nearby town of Peebles to stay in at night. As the investigation progressed, more than 250 law enforcement officials became involved. One of the victims' fathers stated that the victims knew whoever did this, citing the presence of the 2 pit bulls. There was no indication that the dogs tried to attack anyone during the shootings, and there were no signs of forced entry at any of the crime scenes. The Pike County shootings was one of the state's biggest and most complex homicide investigations, but more than a year later, the police were no closer to finding out who was responsible for this appalling crime. But one family in particular, they were of interest. On May 12, 2017, dozens of police searched the grounds of a farm in Peebles. The farm, which was sold 2 months earlier, was once owned by Edward Jake Wagner, the longtime boyfriend of Hannah Rhoden, one of the victims. He was also the father of her child, Sophia. A second search of a Wagner family property took place the same day. The very next month, the Wagner family, made up of George Billy Wagner, his wife Angela Wagner, and their 2 sons, George and Edward Jake Wagner, moved to Alaska, of all places. They moved there to get away. They had close ties to the Rhoden family and needed some space. They were questioned a lot during the investigation, but that was about the height of it. However, many residents in the local area believed the family moved to get away from authorities. It was no great secret, and the police weren't keeping it a great secret, that they wanted to know more about the Wagner family. Police wanted to learn of interactions that the members of the public had with the Wagner family, specifically conversations pertaining to vehicles, firearms, and ammunition. So, the Wagner family may be feeling a bit of heat. They decided to up sticks and move to Alaska. But not for long. In April 2018, 2 years after the murders, the Wagner family came under increased scrutiny when they moved back to Ohio in the spring of 2018.
When I first heard that morning, I thought it was ISIS or terrorist. I thought it was a terrorist attack. Scared me, that's what I did. I thought it was terrorist. I never dreamed anything like that. I never knew. I told the BCI that I thought it was terrorist when I first heard it.
Do you believe your family had anything to do with this?
Absolutely not. None of us were anywhere near that place that night.
And then it all came to a head.
Well, good afternoon. We promised that the day would come when arrests would be made in the Pike County massacres. George Billy Wagner III, his wife Angela Wagner, and their sons, George Wagner IV and Edward Jake Wagner. After an extensive, thorough joint investigation by the Attorney General's Office, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, as well as our Special Prosecution Section, and Pike County Sheriff Charles Reeder's office, these 4 individuals are now in custody for allegedly committing this heartless, ruthless, cold-blooded murder.
In November 2018, 6 members of the Wagner family were arrested, all in different locations, and were taken into custody. 4 were charged with aggravated murder with death penalty specifications. The 4 charged with murder are George Billy, Angela Wagner, and their sons, George and Edward Jake. 2 other family members were also charged. Angela Wagner's mother, Rita Newcomb, and George Billy Wagner's mother, Frederica Wagner, on felony charges of obstructing justice and perjury. Their charges relate to allegations that the 2 forged custody documents for their great-granddaughter, whose mother, Hannah Rhoden, was among those killed in April 2016. You see, the Wagners were accused of monitoring the victims, the Rhodens' movements 4 months before the killings, studying the layout of their homes and buying a magazine clip, empty shell catchers and bug detecting equipment in preparation for the execution-style shootings. Police also found a homemade silencer for a handgun on their property. So, what was the motive for this absolutely brutal series of executions, this massacre? Well, many have speculated that the motive for the murders may be related to disputed custody of the daughter, 3 years old at the time of the massacre, of Edward Jake Wagner and victim Hannah Rhoden. 6 days after the attacks, Wagner applied for custody of their daughter. Custody over Hannah and Edward Jake's child actually caused an argument before the murders occurred. Allegedly, the Wagners wanted Jake to have full custody, and the Rhodens were refusing. Billy Wagner, Jake's father, had come to blows with Chris Rhoden, Hannah's father, the week prior. And this may have been a bit of a pattern with the Wagners. Jake's older brother George has full custody of his toddler-aged son. Rumors claimed that after George and the boy's mother split up, the Wagners strong-armed the mother into relinquishing her parental rights. Now, as this case is still ongoing, authorities haven't fully disclosed the motive for the murders, but it seems like the murders of 8 people was all part of an elaborate scheme in a child custody battle. If found guilty in trials, all 4 could face the death penalty. The Wagners have denied any involvement with the Rhodens' deaths and pleaded not guilty to all charges. Prosecutors say they have no evidence anyone else was involved. The case is still ongoing, so it will be fascinating to see what comes out, and if there's more to this. I just can't wrap my head around it that 8 people were brutally executed for child custody. It seems insane to me. But the police are disclosing very little at the moment. They have said that, they haven't said anything else. There must be more to this than meets the eye. It'll be interesting to see how the case progresses. Keep an eye out for it. And that's the story of the Pike County shootings. The executions of 8 people because one guy wasn't getting full custody of his child. Oh boy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to see some more, please subscribe if you wanna. And as always, I'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.